Hello, everyone.
Hello.
We're back. Scott, you're with us?
I can hear you. Let's see.
Is there,
The screen's lagging a little bit what I see, but I can hear you.
okay. Well, maybe that'll catch up. All right. So our table is cleared. We are in a different mode now. We're kind of in relax, chat. Actually, we should almost have like coffee or scotch with us right now. We
Okay.
did not think ahead.
I got a minute.
Cool. So yeah, we're still here in our dungeon headquarters, thanks to Maselli Productions. But instead of playing games, which we've been doing yesterday and all morning and afternoon today, we are now going to switch gears a little bit and talk about our experience. Phase Shift Games, we've been at it since the beginning of 2018, and we ran just one Kickstarter so far for Dungeon Drop. Mm-hmm. And we really wanted to take an honest look at what was done right, what was done perhaps we could do better next time, or they're flat out wrong, if anything. We had a successful Kickstarter. We'll give you the stats in just a second, but we did really want to just kind of do a retro, look back, and then also partially look ahead to the next Kickstarter and how we might do things or plan to do things differently. So I'm going to make sure everything is connected properly. Scott, is the latency seem all right?
Yeah, I just have audio right now, so I could reconnect or we could go forward with just audio. Technically, I'm not looking at the board or anything anymore.
Mm-hmm. Okay. From what I can tell on the streams, we do have video. So, all right.
Yep, that's probably.
All right, so let's proceed for now. And by the way, we welcome anyone who's watching to chime in with your own questions for us. We are pretty open, transparent people, and happy to disclose anything that would be helpful. This is really anyone who's interested in Kickstarter, how the inner workings work, interested in possibly running your own Kickstarter as a designer or a publisher, or what have you. So we're going to go a little bit faster than originally planned. We got started a little bit late, and we also have to end in time. We're going to be on the main stage of Virtually Expo in just under an hour and a half, and we have to get onto their stream early. So anyway, we basically have about an hour, and we got a series of questions that we were just going to kind of start with, and we'll just go around the horn and kind of see where the conversation takes us.
Great.
Sound good? All right. So just to preface up front, the Kickstarter that we're talking about, it was for Dungeon Drop. The dates, we launched Dungeon Drop Kickstarter on June 4th of last year, 2019. And then it ended just about a month later on July 3rd, 2019. In the end, we had just about 7,600 backers, which for a first-time Kickstarter, for a small box game that straddles mass market, that was pretty incredible. Yeah. 7,600 backers is a very large amount, and I think a little atypical, especially when you consider small box games, which tend to do they struggle sometimes on Kickstarter. Anyway, and it rose over $250,000. So yes. It was a great first Kickstarter for us. It's a great Kickstarter period for anyone, and that's a really, really good success.
Yeah, ranking was really good in the actual Kickstarter.
Yeah, ranking. Top whatever percent, and so I think it was top 1%.
Yeah.
And then the last stat, just to precedent kind of what we're talking about, is the initial print run that we did was actually for 25,000 copies. So if you imagine we had the 7,600 backers, we also had 10,000 copies purchased for mass production. We had 1,500 copies donated to Toys for Tots. Mm-hmm. We had 2,000 copies that were purchased by a Brazilian publisher, and they actually bought just the components, and then they're going to translate into Portuguese and launch in their own country. And then we bought our own copies to sell at conventions. We wanted to sell at conventions.
Yep.
This year, face to face, and there are no such conventions, but.
Things changed on us.
Things changed on us.
Not just us. Changed on everyone.
Yeah. So anyway, that's what we're talking about. That's the subject matter of the Kickstarter. And okay, good. We got somebody that's confirming they can see us all okay. So I guess it's just you, Scott.
I'm good. I'm fixed.
All right. So that's the Kickstarter. So let's start with, I'll ask, and then what I think we'll do is each one of us will kind of alternate who answers first, and we'll just go clockwise. So Scott, I'll invite you to answer this one first. And then we'll go around, all three of us. We each have our different perspectives, and some questions we'll have more or less to say on, and that's fine. Okay, so why was Dungeon Drop the right or the best first game to publish? Oh, by the way, just introductions. Darren and I with Phase Shift Games. Scott is also on the line here. He's the designer of Dungeon Drop and has been part of everything that we've done since day one of our company, essentially. Okay, so Scott, as the designer of Dungeon Drop, why was that the right game for you to first have published or first game to proceed with?
Well, I mean, I'd have to start by saying, and I think I speak for most people who are in the world of game design, I mean, getting a first design this far is kind of a dream for most people, and most of us, any game that could get this far is what we want, but let alone the right one. I think it's the right one because it made it this far, right? I've had other projects that have not gotten this far. It's a great thing about Kickstarter and working with small, that we can work in a small company these days, is that we have a shot, at getting a small game like this up and off the ground. But the whole project has to really come together with so many different people working together, the art and working with you guys in the development and everything. It emerges eventually from the pack of my own ideas and projects. So I think it's kind of a separate question. Why was it successful? For me, I'll just be honest and say I was so happy to get one of my projects up and off the ground like this. I'm just really mainly thankful for the chance and the luck. And there's always a little element to that as well. But
on all our ends.
Here, how to mitigate the luck as much as you possibly can.
Yeah. Well, you got a phrase for that. What's your?
You
make your own luck.
Yes, the harder you work, the luckier you get.
Yeah, it's something about success is where luck and opportunity meet.
There's a bunch of those kind of you've heard them before, but they seem to hold true for sure.
Right, and I guess so. Maybe the last thing I'd say then, in terms of mitigating my luck, is that I would say this is kind of designer advice to people, and I know Jason, you design games, Darren, you do too sometimes, and I'm sure you're similar. But I have at this point, I have a folder of there've got to be 100 different games with designing, right? And that's how you make your own luck, right? You design so many things and work at it. Eventually, the chances of one of them taking off gets higher and higher.
Yeah, just many back burners.
Yeah. What about you?
Well, we had a lot of, and I'm sure you'll echo some of the stuff, and my memory of it might be also a little bit different, but we have a number of, like you were talking about, a lot of projects. We had a number of projects that we were considering to be our first game that we published when we formed our publishing company, and we actually were, like many of our decisions, what we ended up with was not really our first decision. We were going along with a slightly larger game, which Jason can talk about if he wants on his part, but it was a larger game. And then when we found Scott's game and we started talking about it, and they were kind of like in development at the same time, the big question for us was, should we lead with a bigger game and then follow it up with a smaller game once we have a bigger game established, or should we start with the smaller game and start building up from there? And ultimately, we decided to go with the smaller game, largely because of mitigating risk. So we didn't, it was a smaller project. It was easier to get our heads around all of the different components, even though a lot of the stuff for the first project was actually already done. But still, in terms of, it was our first Kickstarter. We didn't know all the things we didn't know, and we figured the kind of like the fewer moving parts, the better for us to manage that. And so ultimately, we decided to go with the smaller project first and bring that to fruition. And then now we have our own back burner of a lot of products to go through. But I would say that was a large part of the reason why we chose this. I mean, also, it would be different if we just had any old small project, but we loved this project. And we thought that this project also, it just hit a lot of the right notes that we thought would be a good, out of the gate product. And it turns out it's seemingly that we were correct.
But not without its red flags. Like you said, the part of the reason that we were hesitating, it's I said earlier, right? Yeah. Small box games, I think, and you know, I don't know the exact stats. Maybe I'm wrong, or maybe this has changed over time. But I think in general, the bigger box games, the games with minis, the games with, you know, all this crunchiness, hobbyist games, generally do. I mean, they raise lots of money, especially if you got figs. So part of our hesitation was, is Dungeon Drop going to do, like, we had this other game, which technically is in the same universe. You're going to see Hawkman and fairies, all the same kind of characters. And we were planning originally to launch that one first. You all don't even know about it. We never talk about it yet. It will still happen, hopefully next year, but it's a much bigger game. But we thought if we do that one first, we would build an audience, and Dungeon Drop could actually live inside that universe. And then we ultimately decided, to your point, like, mitigate risk. How do we start simpler and just, you know, like, I have technically run Kickstarters before under a different brand, so I'm not a stranger to the space, but we never did one at the scale that we did here. So I was all in as well that, you know, let's start with something smaller. As much as we feared might that hurt the long-term success of Dungeon Drop if that's the first one and we don't have the full following yet. Turns out we had stunning success for a game like that, and now the other game will live in the Dungeon Drop universe, which is great. So good.
I think, you know, the other thing that goes along with that too is, you know, like I said, I've got a lot of designs, but one thing that made this stand out to me and stand out to you guys was we did feel like, even though it was a small box game, it was doing something different, right? And stood out for a different reason, not because of its massive number of miniatures, but because you have a kind of a new spatial mechanic to work with, and that's just a core mechanics reason to get people to pay attention to what you're doing when we don't have a designer name to hang on, and we don't have, you know, you guys didn't have
no track record,
right?
Company up and off
technically first-time creators,
as a hook, and I think the kind of novel mechanic was the hook there.
Awesome.
And we were thinking too, like, to some extent, like, we didn't know how successful. We were prepared for it to even, you know, maybe we would make some mistakes and maybe it wouldn't be successful at all, possibly. So another reason why we picked the smaller game, you know, we definitely believed in it ourselves. We believed that it was a good game. But a lot of times when you're dealing with the market, having a good game, even a great game, is a lot of times only half of the battle. You once you have that great game, you can still mess it up many which ways in getting it to the public. So, you know, that's kind of how we went forward, and apparently we did at least good enough to get the success that we have so far.
We did. So, all right, so we're already kind of touching on some of it, so let's move on. How much do you think our Kickstarter pricing, the tiering structure that we created, played into Dungeon Drop's success? Darren, we'll start with you.
Yeah, I mean, this is an area where you know a little bit more than I do, more number crunchy stuff, but I do know that we were always talking about, you know, whether to go a little bit higher. See, the thing is, you have a small box, but also if you charge too little, first of all, it might not be profitable if you make some other mistake, but also there's a perceived value in something as well. And so you don't want to undersell yourself either just for the sake of shaving off something. But then you're also dealing with, you know, like magic numbers that seem to, you know, like a $19 game and a $20 game, it's only $1 different, but there are some people who see that very differently. Yeah. And we were just talking last night, too, that the Kickstarter world may be different than like a retail world where, you know, a $20 Kickstarter game versus a $25 Kickstarter game, people might consider that difference negligible. But for a shopper who's in Walmart, the difference between a $20 and a $25 game may be a decision making. Yeah. Like, I'll get it for $20, but not $25. Mm-hmm. So we tried to find that sweet spot where it also worked with, you know, because we also wanted to make really good components. So I mean, we did special things. We didn't just we used really good high quality components that opened up the box for you. We actually have printing on the inside of the box too. I've heard that one way that you can tell a good craftsman who's, say, a furniture maker is look at how he treats the back of the furniture. So we kind of took that to heart a little bit too. So yeah, here you go. Even here, when you open it, as soon as you start opening it up, you see there's printing even here. There's printing inside here because this is also kind of a component. So we went the extra mile, and but we still had to make sure that it was a good price point, even for the extra bits that we put in.
Yeah. And one thing, so with the pricing, So our pricing for the tiers was lower than what the retail prices are going to market. And that was something so first of all, we had a kind of a silent consultant on the backside, and that was Gonzalo from Thundergriff. Great friend, great publisher. Hopefully he's watching. And so he was definitely giving us his feedback and advice as well along the way. And that was one of those areas where I was like, really? It's okay to, like, I would think that you want the numbers to be the same. It totally makes sense now. When we sell direct through Kickstarter, we don't have a middleman of the distributors and the retailers taking their cuts. So we can take a cut into our profits and accept that, the retail rate will be higher later. That's fine. But in the meantime, we were able to give it to the Kickstarter crowd for a lower rate. So I do think that pricing played into the game's success, that we were, $16. It was kind of like and then a lot of value in the box. And the other piece about the pricing and the tiers that I think very much played into the success was it was not a far stretch to go from that $16 base tier to the $22 deluxe tier.
Right.
And we had 90+%
conversion.
People getting the deluxe. It was a no-brainer. The extra value for only $6 more. Everyone was in for the deluxe, and it just created this cyclical hype, I think. Scott, anything else to add on that?
The only thing I'd add, because I was less a part of this bit, is just a general point of advice for people looking to run Kickstarters. I mean, one of the things that I saw you guys do really well was all through the early stages of this, getting advice from people who had done this stuff before, and being really open to that advice, whether it was consulting other people about where the exact price of this project should fall, or even something like we produce a little trailer video. And I remember you guys showing it to all kinds of other people, getting all kinds of feedback. It ended up, probably becoming like a quarter of the length than it started as, and got all trimmed and chopped down. And I know the end result was a video. I think we had our trailer had a very high percentage rate of people who watched the whole thing through.
Yes.
And stuff like that can become a really big deal, but we wouldn't have gotten there without opening to all those other people's advice and showing the trailer to other people. I think my advice would be not to be in a little bubble and think you can figure it all out yourself.
Yeah, because especially on your first time, you don't know what you don't know. And that's the thing with Kickstarter. Say you make a mistake where, you lose $1 per unit. So that means the better you do, the more money you lose.
The more money you lose.
So you have to be want to be really careful about your
and that's
numbers.
a good point to counter my point, where it's like, we can cut into our profits and go even lower. Well, to your point, you have to have that math done right ahead of time. Know all those hidden costs that go into making it shipping and freight and everything, because you can, if it goes too low, it's now the opposite of success, and it just gets worse and worse the more backers you have. And I've heard horror stories from people who've gotten in that, like, oh my God, I didn't realize that was going to happen. A couple comments from online. I love my deluxe copy. Kudos to you guys for delivering a super fast and great product. Greatly appreciated. The art style, this is someone else, the art style is what pulled me in, and the mechanics sold me. So the art kind of drew, and then the mechanic, the
very
drop,
cute art.
unique.
Love that.
Jurgen offers up that everyone now knows Scott Smith. So there you go. All right, so what were the pros and cons of how we managed add-ons during the campaign, including that kind of all-in bundle that we ended up having? So a lot of this I'll answer first. So a lot of this came out during the campaign. We went in with a certain amount of stretch goals, and then we had what clearly became an unintended level of success. We did not expect it to do this well. So we thought very much on the fly, okay, what are other things that we can offer up, whether through stretch goals or other add-ons that might be of interest? Things like the stringy thingy, which I personally fought. You guys know this. I was not a fan. I'm like, this game, you shouldn't need a string to measure. If you want that, go play 40K. But now that we have it, I use it constantly. It's great. It's so fast. It's so easy. Yeah. And it is cool to just have that.
And when we nailed the name Stringy Thingy.
It's just perfect. So having those different add-on packs, the skeletons emerged. I think we had play tested a version of the skeletons earlier, so we kind of had it, we knew we could do something with it, and we pulled that together pretty quick. The let's see, other add-ons. So the cloth bag, frankly, it was a lot of the backers that kept asking for bag. Like they want to pull from a bag rather than a box. That's fine. And so on. So we ended up having 5 add-ons. They were all individually purchasable. And then we also had the kind of all-in bundle where you get all 5, and basically one of the 5 was free. You got $3 off, essentially. What I will say, for anyone who's watching who is thinking of running a Kickstarter, what a lot of people may not realize is that was crucial. That actually saved us a lot of money, and here's why. There's this thing called pick and pack fee. So if I have 5 add-ons and someone buys 5 add-ons and the game, the fulfillment houses are going to charge me to ship the game. Shipping is a whole other thing we'll talk about. And then they're going to charge me 30 cents, 30 cents, 30 cents, 30 cents, 30 cents times 5. Like for everything that they have to go to a different bin and pick a unit out and put it into this box that they're going to send to a backer, they charge. So that's
per unit.
That's $5 That's $1.50
more.
Just for that. So when we had the all-in bundle, what that allowed us to do was put that all into, because they're all small add-ons, they all fit in the box.
Right.
But by doing that, first of all, more than half of our backers, so that's almost 4,000 backers, went for the all-in. We created a new version of the box that had all 5 of those inside the box.
Which gave it its own, and technically it was almost like its own product.
Almost, it was technically its own product. And now that saved $1.50 in that box times 4,000 copies. So do the math. That's $6,000 we saved ourselves as a business by offering that all in. And of course, the people love it because they got a discount on the whole bundle. And that discount, it's still... Anyway, it all worked out fabulously.
And it comes in the box, too, which is nice.
And it came in the box, yes. And that saved on shipping. Maybe.
To your point also, another important thing about all the add-ons is, as we said, we weren't even expecting quite the level of success that we got. What we I think really did well, and this is largely because of Jason, is we are a very good listening company. We were very interactive with the people who were involved with the Kickstarter. A lot of the ideas for what to do we got from them. And as a matter of fact, we even went further with that with some contests, which you can probably talk about that a little bit better too.
We did giveaway contests before the campaign. And then during the campaign, we did a lot of like social contests, like how we should name this thing or what monster should we add or race or whatever. Yeah.
Right. So we add, it was our decision to add something, but then we went to our audience. What are you interested in? What do you like? We had all kinds of different ideas.
Very engaging.
Yeah. And we love doing that because we love to interact with our fans. That's what we really, really like doing. And that's, unfortunately, not being able to go to some of these cons in person, you miss out on that a little bit. But, we're finding other digital ways to interact with our fans.
Absolutely. Anything else there, Scott?
Yeah, well, I think, just as someone, I started out, obviously, before this project was on Kickstarter, I had some first experiences of enjoying Kickstarter from the other end, right? From a backer's perspective. I'm sure, and I know you guys have as well. And I think part of the value proposition you get on Kickstarter is this becoming a part of this little mini game design community that develops. My first experience that really stuck with me on Kickstarter was a little game called Migration by a guy, Joe Cannon. And he ran a great Kickstarter campaign where, it was a smaller version of ours, but it was really interactive. He was listening. There was a little community that kind of sprouted up. And still to this day, I wonder if one of the cards in there, it's called Age of Oaths, that word, he was just getting, they were open to just getting suggestions. And I still think I think I suggested that word oaths. And now that's on that card, and that was just that was one of my first Kickstarter experiences that really stuck with me, that this is part of why people, we think of I was just telling you guys this the other day, the price you pay for a movie ticket, that if you bring a community in and it's an enjoyable community to be a part of for a month, then part of your price of your game, is just this
experience
community, this experience that you're a part of. And with a small box game like ours, there's a lot of value to that, I think.
That's something we definitely, whether it was like conscious or not, but we, I guess, intuitively kind of got that it was the interactive experience that's also part of what we're, I don't know, say selling, but it's a part of what our company is to the people, and we wanted to play that up as much as possible. And in terms of our fans interacting with our product, the other thing that we did was we created the Tinkerer's Toolkit, where we specifically designed our cards right down to the weight of the paper and everything, so that it lines up with stuff that you can print on the Game Crafter, which is what we use for our prototyping. So shout out to the Game Crafter guys and gals. And what that allowed, and we then gave them templates, our templates that we used ourselves. So if they had an idea for a race or a class or something like that, we gave them all the pieces to do that, and then they can ship them off to Game Crafter, have them printed. When they get their stuff from Game Crafter, they can put it in their game, and it's seamless. It's just like a part of the game. And it was just another thing that we wanted to do to allow our fans to directly interact with our product.
Yeah, you bet. All right, so we'll kick this one off with Scott first. How much did art and kind of graphic design play into the game's ultimate success and marketing efforts and so on?
So you saw that come up already in the comment online there, right? I think art is your way in for so many people. That's what makes the immediate visual impact and so often gets people to click on a product. I think here it was all about tone, in my mind, and I think this is the advice I give to everybody. What type of game are you? What is your audience? And making sure that your art connects with that audience in terms of tone. And here we knew we were going for a family game, really wide audience. And even though, as we've talked about before, we started with pixel art for this because of the cubes, it seemed to work perfectly. But the pixel art, even though it certainly could have been an interesting product with pixel art, it had a darker tone and a more kind of computer game feel. Whereas the art that obviously we ended up going with had this kind of like super charming, open to all ages, really kind of vibrant, charming feel, and that was our target audience there. So I think we found something right away that it connected. And then, I think that's the most important thing.
Karen?
Yeah, well, it was like we said, we did start out with pixel art, and there's a few other reasons why we started with pixel art. But as we were going along, it's interesting. My partnership with Jason has been quite interesting, where we agree quite often on a lot of the different things. And not only do we agree, we kind of come to the same conclusion, like independently, but at the same time often.
Yeah.
Where we kind of just like, you know what? And then he would say this. And it's like, yeah, that's what I'm thinking. Yeah. We went back and forth quite a bit on that. And what had happened was we had gotten some fan art based on something else we were working on from this artist.
Yep.
And what we thought that was really cute. And then as we were going on and we were trying to make the pixel art work, like almost at the same time, we both kind of said, you know what? Do you remember that fan?
Yeah.
And here we are.
Yeah.
And basically we went with that artist, and we loved some of the other characters. There's the cuteness is, it's also a certain kind of cuteness, because I've seen other chibi stuff that doesn't, it's nice, but it doesn't quite, the proportions and everything that we have on this are just so kind of unique. We even made our meeples kind of based off of these proportions, right, which are slightly different than traditional chibi-ish kind of stuff. So I think we have kind of almost its own unique style among the cuteness.
Well, and a couple of other things going for it. One, I'm going to give myself a shout out that we kept, the one thing we kept from my original game was that they're all falling, which was just a little something different.
Yep. Yes, that's
and then
great.
The other thing, and I give full credit to Meryl here, is that her art, it wasn't just in a chibi style. There's so much character in her each one. The expressions on the faces, even what they're trying to do, like reaching for something in front of them or being surprised by something. it wasn't just the style, it was the character. And we talked about it before. She, in interacting with her actual personality
Yes.
is what makes her a good artist. Her actual super like cheery, happy personality just oozes out into her artwork. And
Absolutely.
There.
All right. I won't add anything more. I completely agree. We tried the pixel art thing, didn't work. We found Marilia, and her art style was perfect for this game, and I do think it played into the success. I love listening to JT Smith on his podcast. He's the owner of the Game Crafter, and he says all the time, art sells games.
Right.
Now, you want to keep the people who bought the games, you want to keep them interested. You want to keep them loving the game and coming back for more, and that's the game itself. But art sells games.
Right.
And you got to draw people in, and we did that.
One other quick thing, too, in terms of the graphic design, is like this game has a lot of cubes in it, so one of the decisions we also made was to have the box be a cube. And, I think that was a very... A really good
novel. I mean, I'm surprised that I have never, other than a Minecraft toy, I don't know as I've ever seen a game come in a cubicle box. And I'm like, how is that not? We can't be the only ones who've thought of that idea. Or it's just so, heresy to think of a box in that shape. So I don't know, but yeah,
it seemed to work for us though.
What are your thoughts on the campaign in progress? I'll start with you, Darren. We already kind of touched on this earlier. So like the special events, the stretch goals, the social goals, did you feel like we had that slump? Did you feel the slump that typical Kickstarters talk about, where that kind of middle barren wasteland where you're seeing 1 or 2 orders a day? What did we,
It didn't, I mean, like, I think almost just by the nature of the way it works, almost all Kickstarters have a little bit of a saddle in general, but some of them go like almost to the bottom where there's like hardly anything. We never really had that, and I think that the reason for that is our level of interaction with the fans. I mean, regardless of that, even how many units we're selling in any given day, I was constantly like on an adrenaline high. For the
I know you weren't feeling the slump because I kept coming back to you for more stuff.
But we were responding. Like people, we kept doing stuff. They kept saying, "Okay, great, I'll take that. What else?"
Yep.
And so then we would like kind of work together, and then some of the what else's we actually went to them. What are they interested in? And we just basically we were excited about our product, and we were happy that our fans were excited about our product, and we just tried to essentially meet the demand. They were wanting more stuff, and then we were basically making more stuff.
Yeah.
And it's a good thing that we had a lot of ideas,
but not haphazardly.
Not randomly at all.
Yeah.
No, we had.
Yeah. Oh yeah, go ahead.
Well, the main thing is, yes, it was never random, but it was more. There were certain details or ways we went about it that were directly influenced by our interaction with the fan base.
Mm-hmm. Yep.
And what I would say about that is, we were working during that campaign.
Oh yeah,
it was like a job, every single day. It is possible to create some stuff or refine some stuff during a campaign if you're all working together on it. I mean, and the other thing is you have to have a really good, healthy, collaborative, relationship to be able to be flexible on the fly a little bit like that, and that we've had all the way through. You can't work in isolation if you're going to adapt like that, because we were bouncing, ideas and continuing to play test with stuff with each other all the way through. And you can be more flexible if you have, I think, a good team that is collaborating well all the way through. It makes you more responsive.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. So the next one's an interesting one. In fact, Darren and I were already starting to talk about it last night. So early birds kind of have a bad rep in the Kickstarter community. An early bird being something like, if you back us in the first 48 hours, you get this free special thing or this extra discount or whatever. And the reason that they have a bad rep is what happens is people come in, on the third day, and they either didn't notice that it was out earlier, they didn't have the time, they were away for the weekend, whatever the case may be, and now they have a bad taste in their mouth, and they feel like they lost something. And Kickstarter especially is there to create special things.
Right.
And if there's one special version of a game that's going to come out, it is the Kickstarter version. And so
If you already missed out on it on day 3.
Yeah, then they're like, why aren't I even back? Even though they're still going to get all this other cool stuff, there's this negative connotation. Now, this is a controversy amongst designers and publishers, because there are many publishers who are like, yes, it can leave a bad taste in some people's mouths, but you have to weigh that with the positive side of an early bird. Day 1 of any Kickstarter is the most crucial time for Kickstarter. And if you get a higher spike on day 1, it sets the tone for the rest of the campaign, and you can have a materially more successful campaign based on that day 1 success. And so early birds, that's why you do them. So we weighed all this out and felt that for our first campaign, considering what was against us, first-time creators, small box game, more of a mass market
first time
feel.
publisher and designer.
Yeah, absolutely, yes, all that. So we said to ourselves, we do feel that we need to offer something in the form of an early bird, but didn't want to call it an early bird and wanted to kind of do something a little different. And so what we did was we had the limited promo pack, and we said, this was all before the campaign started. What we said was, during our marketing, we said, if you sign up for our email distribution list and you back us on day 1, we will give you this free limited promo pack, which had a metal dragon and everything. And so what it allowed us to do was build our Rolodex of email addresses. We would email them the morning of launch and say, hey, it's here. You signed up for our email specifically so you can do this. So please back us on day 1, and you're going to get that great free thing. And we didn't actually mention any of this on the campaign page itself. So there was never a sense on the campaign page that there was an early bird. We thought this was ingenious, and it worked for us, but it certainly didn't stay hidden. There were people buzzing about it in the comments thread. Did I get that limited promo pack? Oh, I came in an hour late. Can I still get that limited promo pack? And of course, countless other people now are like, what limited promo pack? What are you doing, Face Shift? And so then we pivoted. I'm just giving the full backstory. Then we can chat about it. We pivoted in maybe day 2 or something. We decided, okay, so many people are going to want this limited promo pack. Let's make it available for everyone as an add-on. And it's just if you were part of that day 1, you would get it for free.
Right.
Once again, that could have left another negative taste that, well, why did they get it for $3 less and now I have to pay that extra $3? Anyway, that's what we did. And now the limited promo pack is out. Almost all backers ended up getting it, whether free or paid. Okay, so with that all said, what would we do differently next time? What did we think about all of this? I just talked a lot, so I'll actually pause and give you my thoughts after. Scott, in fact, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this. Obviously not as woven into the decisioning on all of that, but what do you think about this kind of world of early birds and so on?
Oh, you're just getting my pure opinion on it?
Yeah. Well, and what we did and whether or not you think we should do it again.
Everybody would like to not do it in some ways because, like you said, it's like, to me, it's the same thing we were just talking about this during the playtest. Like, as a designer, I don't like when you lose at something, when you fail a roll against a pirate, right? I would prefer to deny someone a really good thing versus to penalize them in any way, and the early bird feeling of that you've been penalized, that something's been taken away from you. It's like, I would say running a Kickstarter, it is its own game. It is a game design in a way, and I think it's helpful sometimes to think of it that way. You're trying to create an experience that feels fun all the way through and good, and like you're valuing people's efforts all the way through it, so I think early birds, it's like a little bit of a flawed design, thing. It has a definite benefit, a hook, but you could leave people walking away feeling like that. Well, that wasn't fun. I didn't like that. I didn't like being denied that. So I think I'm hopeful. Now we're in a different position. So this is where I don't know what I would advise someone else, because now that we've got this leg up, I could easily see you guys not doing early bird next time. You've created more of a Rolodex right through this campaign, and there there may be a decision to be made there that you don't need that anymore, which would be nice. But I certainly understand why somebody in the position we were in would do something like that. And I would encourage people, Kickstarter backers to be aware of that too. I mean, you're always welcome to voice your opinions, but people are just trying to figure out a way to make it work, and it can be hard.
Yeah, my input on that would also be one of the things, since we never had like a bigger, I know you've done some of the smaller ones, bigger Kickstarters, sometimes you learn a little bit about what your audience wants that might be a little bit different than what you expected. And we will take that, because obviously our intentions were always the best, but you don't always think of it from every angle. And what some people, I believe, what they felt like and what was, we didn't realize it was there as much. And now, of course, it's like we completely understand it or know that it's there, is like if somebody doesn't get that little the little metal dragon thing, which is very awesome, but it's just like one little thing. But to some people, and it is extremely valid, especially the kind of people who like Kickstarter, in a way they might feel like they have a puzzle with one piece missing.
Yeah.
And that
completionist. I am a completionist.
I actually get it, but it wasn't one of the things that it wasn't quite there for us as present as it is now.
Yeah.
And we're very aware that there are some people that just will be, they may not want to buy the product if that one puzzle piece is missing, and I get that actually.
And for the record, just like what kind of pushback did we get? Mm-hmm. There was, and it killed me because I'm like, how is this possible? We had 7,600 backers. There was one back out, and I was like, man, we were actually so close to having 0 negative comments on this thing of any kind. But there was one backer who backed out and said, I won't feel like a second-rate backer. Mm-hmm. I was like, second-rate? Like,
it's not how we feel.
I mean, I don't feel that way about you, but
But now we know that people think like that, and we are definitely taking that into consideration. You live and learn and move on.
Yeah.
And any of the things that we heard that people had any feelings about, we're definitely taking into consideration for our next Kickstarter. And obviously, we're not going to do it perfect either, but our heart is definitely, we're shooting for perfect, and we're hoping to, what do they say, like shoot for the stars?
Shoot for the stars, land on the moon?
Yeah.
Shoot for the moon, you're just in lower atmosphere somewhere.
So we're shooting for the stars still.
So,
literally soon.
Yes. So my 2 cents on the early bird thing, and we talked about this last night, and Scott, this will almost be news for you. Most likely, we reserve our right to change our decision here. Right. But most likely, I like what somebody once told me, don't know who it was, but they said, don't you think that Kickstarter, the whole Kickstarter, is one giant early bird? And I'm like, yes. Yes. Yeah. You are all our beloved early birds, right? Like, we want the whole campaign to feel that way. To the earlier point, day one is so crucial, and so we can urge people to back us on day one because of how important that is. But to further incentivize an early bird on what is already, the entire thing is a giant early bird. So what we anticipate doing for the Kickstarter in October, we will have a Kickstarter exclusive promo pack, and it'll have maybe a metal cube. We'll see. But it'll be a Kickstarter exclusive, not an early bird. And so anyone that joins us on the Kickstarter has access to that, whether it's free or small price, whatever. We'll figure that out. But that would be the perk for being an early bird. That would be a Kickstarter exclusive, but not having something tied to day one. And we have the luxury, though, to Scott's point. I can't say I would advise a first-time creator to avoid early birds because it did help lead to our success. But at least at this point, we have the luxury of having built a good Rolodex and don't feel that we need that gimmick, I guess. Mm-hmm. So,
but like you said, all the stuff we're talking about, as we learn and hear back from our fans, like anything is open to discussion and change between ourselves. The honest answer of all of it is we're really trying to do what's best for our customers. Yeah, because that's what I only can enjoy one game. You know what I mean? We're going to make 10,000 of them. We want to make sure 10,000 people are happy, or 20 or 50 or whatever. Right. So, we are making this not just for ourselves, but we're really making this for our customers. We want them to be happy.
You bet. All right. So we're not going to have time for all the questions on the list, but this one's another interesting one that I think people would like to hear about, and that is solo mode. So I demoed solo mode yesterday. People got to see just how deep and rich that experience is. When we created the Kickstarter, maybe again, Scott, maybe you and I had bounced ideas of how a solo mode might work, but it was not fleshed out. And we decided at some point during the campaign, based on request, based on social stretch goals and whatever else, that we would add a solo mode. And the decision we made was that we would not include the solo mode rules in the box because we didn't have them fleshed out yet.
Right.
We needed to give all of our files to the printer within 15 days at the end of the Kickstarter, and we were not going to have enough time to properly and adequately play test and refine those rules. So what we did was we published them online. We included one page in the rulebook about solo mode, just like an overview, and a QR code to link, or the website link to link out to Phase Shift to download the solo rules. So what that means is there's 25,000 copies of this game in circulation, and solo mode is this awesome thing, but they don't have those rules inside the box. Well, what do we think about that decision? Darren, we'll start with you.
Well, okay. You have the two options then. You either A, don't do it, or B, do it, well, the three options. What we did, or
yes.
Don't do it, or do it and put in the rules as best we think they are at the moment of printing without properly playtesting them, which, yes, there's one thing to have an errata where you're like changing a word here or there or whatever, but we didn't want to have the entire solo gameplay be an errata. Yeah. So from where we were and what we wanted to do, I think we made the right decision. But obviously going forward, and when we do new printings and stuff like that, there will be printed versions of the solo mode or whatever. So,
and in fact, one of the things we're planning for the October Kickstarter is we'll have an upgrade pack for people who bought the first version of Dungeon Drop.
Exactly.
The errata that was out there's a couple cards where we tweak some things. We'll give new versions of those. We'll have the printed solo rules, updated colors that we've done. So basically a very, very low cost. Like, we're not going to try to make profit on this. This is our gift to backers.
Right.
That here's your little upgrade pack. And so few creators have the opportunity to even do something like that. So we're stoked that people will come back around to us a second time and have the opportunity, and then we can give back in that way. So we will give a full, formal solo rulebook as part of this upgrade pack in the next Kickstarter. I think we did the right thing. I think
we had to do.
Yeah, it was either the choice. To me, there was not an option to just put in hacked-in rules that weren't fully tested. That's wrong. And too many other creators do that, but that's wrong. So we decided it was either don't add it at all, just call it a 2 to 4 player game, and then maybe in some later expansion you release solo mode. But we built it in. People wanted it. It allowed us to market this as a 1 to 4 player game, and it is such a great mode, and we know that we can still supply the rules both digitally and then eventually in print. So I do think we did the right thing. I don't know as I heard much negative feedback about this. Some people said, it's unfortunate that the solo rules aren't in the box. I agree. It is unfortunate, but it was either that or not give you solo mode. And so I think we did the right thing. Scott, any thoughts there?
Yeah, so a lot of this I think people have to understand too, and you might hopefully find yourself in this position if you're planning to run a Kickstarter campaign. If we were more successful than we thought, we're getting more requests than we thought for different things like play modes, things like that. And you have this choice. I totally agree with Jason. It's not an option to print half-done rules in a rule book. Obviously that's out. But the only other option is to not do it. And I would say this goes along with our general ethos with the campaign, which is just we love doing this. We love doing this with the community, and us working hard during the campaign to literally develop a solo mode for the game was part of our giving back, and again becomes part of our value proposition. As long as we don't again do something hasty like just print it in there, we came up with this medium option, and that allows us to because the only other option would have been just to not work, right? But we want to work on it and keep giving back if we possibly can, and we did. So I thought it was a great solution.
And just as like the icing on the cake, is it's really cool. I mean,
Yeah.
solo mode is really, and we were just talking about it over lunch. It's interesting because solo mode, it's sometimes when a game does a solo mode, they just kind of put an AI on the opposition, or they do something where it's kind of still like the same game but just with like an AI. But our solo mode actually is it is at heart the same game, but it is slightly different. The way it works, you actually walk through rooms where you don't really do that in the main game. So it's it's this interesting thing where it's spiritually the same. It's like a twin brother more than just a modification of the original. It's really neat the way it works for those who haven't tried it yet.
Agreed. So I guess similarly, we'll ask, I think, 2 more questions. So similarly, we also did not include in the campaign neoprene mats and any kind of a wall structure. Mm-hmm. And we were asked by fans for both of those. The neoprene mats, people felt would help mute the bounce effect. So if you have like a glass table, cubes kind of bounce into infinity off the table and never to be found again. And then walls, same thing, just a different way to help contain the cubes, or preferably the two together. We did not include either of those and as part of the campaign at all. Why didn't we? And why did we make that decision? Was it the right decision?
Well, one thing is, again, the game itself is this, and obviously a neoprene mat and a wall, they wouldn't fit in this, and this is what the game was. Although we did think it was important to make it available. And there are also some people who say, well, I just play it on the floor. I don't need either of those things. I have, my table is kind of an old dented wooden table anyway. So what would have happened is, if we were to burn it all into the product, it would have been a more expensive product, and it would have been less appealing to X number of the people who wanted it. So we decided to kind of go with the game itself, and then when we realized just how much people would still want it, even as an additional thing, well, then again, we met the people where they were. They said, we want this, so we made it.
Yeah. We made it eventually as an add-on.
Yep.
We did, through a couple different forms. The mats were made available through the Game Crafter direct, and then now we have them in our storefront. You can buy them direct from us, and we will make them part of our next campaign, unquestionably. For me, what I'll add is that it was our first Kickstarter, as we said. We wanted to keep things manageable and simple enough. Neoprene mats are heavy. Walls are big. Those are the 2 things that complicate shipping, guys.
Yeah.
Weight and size. So by keeping them out of that, we hadn't been through the ropes. We did not go through the full Kickstarter and fulfillment process with distribution centers and freight and so on. That's the mat, and then the walls that you saw earlier on the live streams. So we didn't want to complicate the shipping and the freight and the pricing. We just frankly didn't have enough experience to rock the boat in progress at that time.
Yeah.
So.
But they work great now if you
but as far as what would we do differently next time? So, we'll tell you for certain. With Drop Drive, when we launch that campaign, there will be walls, there will be mats as part of the camp. There's no reason not to. We understand
walls.
Shipping stuff now.
Right, but they won't be they will be an add-on now.
Yeah, well, whether it's an add-on or a special tier or whatever, we'll figure that out, but it will be part of the campaign and available from the get-go.
Yes, yep.
So
people definitely want that.
Absolutely do. So then this one's interesting. We all know that the shiny cubes that we have in the game Dungeon Drop, there's shiny gold and there's shiny purple cubes. Mm-hmm. And there is a manufacturing reality that when you make electroplated cubes, this is the process that you use to get shiny metallic look. You electroplate the acrylic cubes. The process to electroplate, the cubes have to be attached to a sprue at a single point, which is one of the corners of the cube. Then they go through this electroplating, which just takes the whole sprue, hundreds of cubes at once, and electroplates them, and then they snap the cubes off of the sprue. And what this means is that at the corner of every one of those shiny cubes is a little chip. You can see basically where it attached to the plastic sprue. Now, first thing I really want to make clear, I had to make this clear online quite a bit many months ago, This is true in every game on the market
that has
electroplated cubes, right down to the top shelf game Terraforming Mars. In fact, several backers challenged me on this, and they said, not my copy. And I said, please go look respectfully. They do. And they come back and they say, wow, you're right. Didn't notice that. So this is just the process. Now, the question is, would we use shiny cubes again? Now, Drop Drive, we just showed, we don't have shiny cubes in that. There's no real need for it. But if we were to do the next dungeon drop or an expansion that has some shiny, would we use shiny cubes again? Or do we feel that that chipped corner gets in the way enough? I will tell you, of all the, frankly, it was the complaint, right? It was the only complaint. It was like, I have broken cubes. People felt they were defects. Now, once I explained it, 99% of people were like, fine, that makes sense. I get it. But what do you guys think? Scott, what do you think?
I'd still use them again. But I see, this is, this is where you get, once you get into this type of territory, you get into the people's play styles. How this is like the question of, do you sleeve your cards or not?
Yes.
For me, like I'm literally a person where wear on my cards is like a sign of love to me. Like it's like a beloved thing that shows all the times I've played. So it doesn't bother me in the least. I am very aware that that is not the only perspective. So for me, it's a no-brainer. Oh, they're so shiny. I love watching people go after stuff that's shiny, even if it doesn't even benefit them, because we all love shiny stuff. So, I mean, I'd use it again in a heartbeat. However, I am not the only vote there, including the rest of this team. But that's my opinion.
I guess for me, I didn't notice it until people started noticing it. The whole thing is you have your trade-off. You do it because it's really cool, but you have to get this super cool thing that looks a little different than everything else. It comes at the cost of one corner being not perfect.
Yeah.
So that's the trade-off, and the people who want it absolutely perfect and no trade-off. At the moment, the technology isn't there to do that. So the only other,
or if it is, it's cost prohibitive. It's just not an option.
Right. Yeah, I mean, because you can do anything with enough money.
Sure.
So but I think the best answer I would come up with right now is if we had a game that seems to call for that, which again our Drop Drive doesn't. But if we had a game that seems to call for that, basically, I'm sure what we would do is there a different thing that we could do that is just as cool but different that doesn't have that defect? And, it's that whole just as cool thing. Or if it is, like, what's the percent of that corner worth? Like, okay, maybe this thing is 90% as cool and it doesn't have that defect, and maybe that 90%, that 10% differential is worth not upsetting 10% of our customers with the chipped corner. I don't know the exact numbers, but
these are the things that publishers have to deal with, folks. Here.
That's what we would talk about, though. That's what we would say. Is there another way to get the effect we want that is as close to as cool as possible without the defect? Yeah. And if we could find it, we might do it. If we can't find it, we might just basically, put our guard up for the 10%.
Well, I think communication's a big part of it.
Right.
We didn't personally know that this was a reality at first.
We found out with everybody else.
We knew shiny cubes were possible. Like, we want shiny cubes, let's do it. So I will say, if we did it again, we would be very upfront. Like, we use electroplating. Electroplating means that one of the corners is going to be chipped. And I suspect we mitigate 95% of the concerns. For me, I would say I would redo that. If we were to launch Dungeon Drop version 2, completely whatever, like the best version of Dungeon Drop we could do, to me, gold cubes in the dungeon should be shiny gold. We have the shiny purple that represent a few different things, health potions in the base game and some other stuff. I just I feel like it was worth. There is this thing called a metallic paint, which you can do on wooden cubes. You can do a metallic paint, and it has like a shine to it, but you still see like the wood grain showing through. And it would work. I mean, frankly, just plain yellow wooden cubes would work.
Right.
But is it really as cool?
Here's, knowing this, like an example of what you could do in a campaign would be at a certain point in it, you could have a community poll to get it on everybody's mind, right? Like we could go shiny gold, but it's going to have this little chip corner, or we could go with this other method. You bring it to everybody's attention, you make them really aware of it, and they vote. And if it comes out a landslide, people want shiny cubes.
Yeah.
And this is the thing, like, because I'm not sure anybody's, at that point now you're weighing, okay, it's an imperfect thing, but now what is it compared to how it would have to be otherwise? And that might be a different conversation to have, and probably the right conversation to have.
Yeah.
Because that is one of those different textures of the cubes. We had a game with the possibility for like a disaster of trying to visually see the different types of cubes. There are a lot of different cube types. And anything we could do to, have this one's translucent, this one's shiny, that makes them immediately visually recognizable on the table, aside from just color, like straight color. And so any little bits we were able to do to aid that color, distinction, for a whole bunch of reasons, I think was a factor there.
All right, so we need to cut it here. I'm going to answer a question Frost Knight was asking. Darren, you showed this one. This is our special demo mat. Yeah. Sorry for the misleading. The mats that we sell online are they're half size. They're like this, and then if you get two of them, they seamlessly match up in the middle. And that's what we have online. So
it is the same art.
It's the identical art, but we did not mass produce the big ones. And that leads to the question: would we the next time around? I don't know, and here's why. This, when wrapped up, is 14 inches tall. This, when wrapped up, is 24 inches tall. The shipping difference is massive. Here's why: this fits in a standard parcel. This is specialty. Massive, massive difference for shipping.
And we also know firsthand that our customers, the shipping is important to them.
Shipping's we didn't get to that question, but that's we'll save that maybe for a round 2 of this kind of a panel. Shipping's complicated, guys, and shipping is expensive, and that's a whole other topic.
And it's not entirely within our
no, it's not at all.
The only thing that's in our control. This is the kind of stuff that's in our control.
Yeah.
Make this, and it's much more expensive because of shipping.
Right.
Or this, and it fits in the container.
Right. So, listen, I want to thank everyone for joining. I love these kinds of dialogues. I mean, we're just we're sharing, transparent, and it's good for us to just talk these things out as well, because we're not perfect, and we'll make more mistakes, but hopefully we're helping some others make some good decisions. So very good, shooting for the stars. So in 25 minutes we're going to be on the main stage at Virtually Expo. The link is also on our booth page, so if you go to our virtual booth, we did add an event there, so it would have the link to, it's not our Twitch, it's the main stage's connection, so whatever, I think it's, I don't know, whatever it is. So join us there, and thanks again for chatting with us. We'll talk to y'all soon.
Cheers.